attribute Tupac's death in 1996 to his involvement with Suge. Fans can't help but think, had he not been bailed out by Suge and signed to Death Row Records, he may still be here today. Tupac was a huge loss to the industry. His absence is still felt, even after 24 years, by fans both old and new, but perhaps too much has been unfairly attributed to Suge. After all, Tupac was no angel before Suge. Maybe we have forgotten that over the years. It's natural to immortalize those who have passed and have an idealistic image of them in our minds. Younger fans may also be unaware of the backstory behind Tupac's life, long before California Love and Changes.
See, I get a feeling there are two Tupacs. I mean, you're this kind, sensitive, friendly guy. Smelling guy. Yet, you're involved in so much controversy.
According to Jada Pinkett Smith, Tupac changed when he went to jail. But how was he before he met Suge? And was he that much different from his pre-Death Row Record days? Tupac was not your typical rapper right off the bat. In high school, he pursued many endeavours and was a well-rounded artist. He studied poetry, theatre and music. He was even partial to a little ballet. He embraced all kinds of music, not just hip-hop. He was well-read and craved education, not just in school, but in life. In 1990, he got his first break when he became a roadie and backup dancer for the rap group Digital Underground. He later began rapping with them. The group were heavily influenced by funk and groups such as Parliament Funkadelic, a far cry from the gangster rap he adopted later in his career.
Tupac, go ahead and rock this. Now I clown around when I hang around with the underground.
Tupac also starred in a Chevy Chase movie, as well as appearing on the track Nothing But Trouble for the movie's soundtrack. A year later, Park released his solo album, Tupacalypse Now, with Interscope Records. He talked about heavy issues faced by those living in the hood, especially the plight of young black single mothers. Songs such as Brenda Got a Baby shed light on the topics people didn't openly talk about. Based on a true story, it is one of many songs that drew women towards his music. He chose to avoid the rapper stereotype of degrading and objectifying women. Not that he never had any songs with the B word in it, but he also wrote music aimed to encourage women from disadvantaged backgrounds. People who have worked with Park said he believed that having a female fan base was the key to success in the industry. The album also touched upon police brutality, an issue that was close to Tupac's heart, since his mother, Afeni Shakur, was a Black Panther. He grew up around activism, which addressed these issues. The album was met with controversy, with the then US Vice President, Dan Quayle, publicly criticising it, saying, "There's no reason for a record like this to be released. It has no place in our society." The album was even used in court and cited as inspiration for a heinous crime. It was used by a lawyer to defend his client. The album went gold, selling 500,000 copies. Tupac's movie career began to grow too. He had a starring role in the film Juice, starring alongside Queen Latifah, Samuel L. Jackson and Omar Epps. In 1993 came his second album, Strictly for My. It was a breakthrough album with hits such as I Get Around and Keep Your Head Up. Keep Your Head Up featured Blackstreet's Dave Hollister. It was dedicated to black women and the late Latasha Harlins, whose death sparked outrage in the black community. The song reached 12 on Billboard and 2 in the rap charts. One incident which shows he had a wild streak well before he was signed with Suge was the one involving 2 off-duty police officers. On the night of the 31st of October 1993, Tupac, who was 22 at the time, was in Atlanta to perform at the Clark Atlanta University. Some reports say 2 cars containing Tupac and his entourage almost ran over the officers and their wives as they crossed the street. After the couple were nearly hit, the 2 officers, who were both in civilian clothing, argued with the driver and passengers of both cars. One is believed to have pulled out a gun. Tupac did the same, resulting in a shooting. A spokesman for the Clayton County Police admitted that the department does not issue weapons for off-duty officers. One officer was wounded in the abdomen and the other in the butt. Tupac was charged and the press highlighted lyrics in his music as evidence for his guilt. Obviously, he was unaware that they were police officers, as they were in plain clothes. His lawyer refuted the charges, saying they have a person on whom they can lay a case. Initially, it may sound good because of what my client is identified with. But when you look at the bare facts, the only crime appears to be the actions of these two officers. According to Idi Amin, who witnessed the incident, Tupac and the group he was with went back to a hotel after his performance. They were trying to park at the entrance, and the cops and their wives were asked to get out of the way. It was just about trying to get them out of the way, he said in a Vlad TV interview. But upon further inspection, you see they're beating up this guy, they're working him over, they're giving him the business, and immediately, Park jumps out of the car. By the time we actually get up there, a gun comes out, and it's pointing at Park's sternum. Now at the time, we don't know they're cops, it's just two white boys beating up a black dude. They was off duty, it's not like they were in uniform, he said. So, a gun comes out, and Park pulls up his shirt, and was like, "Thug life, mother." That just stopped the cop in his tracks. He didn't know what to do at that point. He was just standing next to Park's car, brand new BMW 750. He just broke the window with the butt of the gun and started running.
And an intoxicated off-duty police officer was harassing someone.
A black kid.
Pac said something to him. Pac was in the car with the homies, like two cars, and they chose to come to the car and engage, and Pac wasn't the type of dude to back down, and they broke the passenger window, I think. The cop broke the passenger window, and they got shot in the ass.
On Instagram, Idi Amin said, "This is why I laugh when I hear any slander against him. 99% of your fav rappers would have kept it moving. Even the guy he was helping testified against him. But they were dirty cops. So he won anyway." After this ish happened, we went upstairs and this guy performed Dear Mama to a room full of girls like nothing happened. Tupac got off because the guns the officers had were stolen. They were allegedly evidence from another case and taken from the evidence room. Plus, they were intoxicated. At the time, getting off for an incident involving two crooked cops in the South gave Tupac a legendary status. That year, he had different run-ins with the police. This resulted in him filing various lawsuits against them. Many believe getting off for the incident involving off-duty officers and being associated with the Black Panthers put a mark on Tupac. He filed a $10 million brutality suit in Oakland, California for charges against him that were later dismissed. He was arrested for jaywalking and allegedly slammed to the ground when arrested. The suit was settled out of court with a $42,000 sum. In an interview with Davey D, Tupac said, "For everyone who doesn't know, I, an innocent young black male, was walking down the streets of Oakland minding my own business, and the police department saw fit for me to be trained or snapped back into my place. So they asked for my ID and sweated me about my name because my name is Tupac. My final words to them was, F y'all. Next thing I know, I was in a chokehold, passing out, with cuffs on, headed for jail for resisting arrest. Yes, you heard right. I was arrested for resisting arrest." On describing what he intended to do with the money, Tupac said, "If I win, I get the money. Then Oakland Police Department is going to buy a boys' home, me a house, my family a house, and a stop police brutality centre, and other little odd things like that." So did these incidents make him gangster? Or was Tupac more of an activist who stood up to police brutality and the unfair treatment of black suspects? As Idi Amin said, most of today's rappers would probably kept on walking if they were in Tupac's position. But could you blame them? Tupac chose to involve himself without hesitation, standing up for a black man he believed was being mistreated. But sadly, even the guy he tried to help testified against him. But hey, at least the crooked cops were exposed for their actions. It could have easily ended in tragedy though. Do you think he did the right thing? Or should he have avoided trouble? Later that year, Tupac went on to star alongside Janet Jackson in Poetic Justice, where he played a conscientious postal worker trying to win over a love interest. Maya Angelou recalled working with Tupac and described him being hot-tempered on set. She had to pull him aside and have a word with him after he got into a fight with another guy while filming. He was swearing and mouthing off, she said. She calmed him down and had a quiet word with him. By the end of the conversation, he was in tears. I said to him, "When was the last time anyone told you how important you are? Did you know our people stood on auction blocks, bought and sold so you could stay alive today?" And finally, he heard me and began to weep. Was 1994 the pivotal point in Tupac's life? This was the year he was shot 5 times at the Quad Recording Studios and survived. He said in an interview the following year that prior to that, he never believed another black man could cause him harm. In the midst of this, he was dealing with more legal troubles, facing serious charges, and eventually being sentenced to up to 4.5 years in prison. He maintained his innocence right up until the end. Jada Pinkett Smith said, "It was going to jail that changed Park, and he developed a certain mentality that was his way of surviving." Tupac's mother, Afeni, said that it was the incident with the police regarding the jaywalking that really changed Tupac as a young man. After that, he was never the same again, she said. Muta Napoleon Bill said Park became very angry in prison. While he was there, he had a lot of time to think about his enemies. Around this time, Biggie's song, Who Shot Ya, came out. Although Biggie always maintained it was an unfortunate coincidence, Tupac believed the song was a diss against him and an admission of Bad Boy's involvement in the Quad studio shooting.
While I'm in jail, strangers is telling me, yo, you don't know, Biggie homeboy shot you. Cause they bragging, they telling they in jail, yo, we just got popped. That's why what I'm doing, I know what I'm doing, I'm destroying them. I'm destroying them.
In an excerpt from his book, Life is Raw, the story of a reformed outlaw, Muta explained how Tupac wanted to turn his life around upon being released and that he even felt regret about his legal battles. He was determined to steer clear of trouble and stay more positive. The only problem was his enemies wouldn't let him, he said. Other rappers were taking shots at him in their music and he was powerless to confront them. The excerpt reads, "But little did they know they were prodding the belly of a sleeping lion." He conveyed to Muta on numerous occasions that he genuinely didn't have any real animosity towards anyone in the rap industry, but coming at him in this manner, in a position where he couldn't readily defend himself, was unacceptable. For Park, it was a declaration of war. His third album, Me Against the World, was released in March 1995. It became the first #1 album released by an artist during a prison stint and went on to sell over 3 million copies. Despite this, Park didn't have the funds to buy his mother a house, nor bail himself out. He was broke despite selling millions of records with Interscope. He was in debt due to many legal battles, and most artists don't make much from their first couple of albums.
Game that goes on because now, as a result of your art, you're becoming one of the rich.
Yes. Not rich, but they giving me checks more often. But they got this cool way to keep a brother broke. You know what I'm saying? Like you say, I got like 7 lawsuits against me for nothing. But I still got to pay the lawyers, still got to pay everybody to go to court, still got to pay for a bodyguard. Because now they say I got to have one, you know, I still got to pay. You know, it's just more bills. They give me more checks, but they also give me more bills.
We all know the story of how Suge put up the 1.4 million bond to bail Tupac out. In exchange, he agreed to sign with Death Row Records. It is believed this is what put Tupac on a downward spiral, leading up to his death just the following year.
everyone said there were two sides to Tupac. The wonderful side and the not so wonderful. Suge Knight's influence brought out the worst. Suge Knight's influence brought out the worst.
But some have pointed out that Suge did some good too. As well as being the only person who came up with the bail money, he agreed to buy a house for Tupac's mother outright. She was believed to be homeless at the time. In an interview with The Art of Dialogue, Muta said, Suge wanted to sign Tupac for a while, but he was with Interscope. Tupac got his then wife, Keisha Morris, to contact Suge, and he started taking the steps to sign him. And according to Napoleon, Park was excited to join Suge's label, and the two always had mutual respect for each other. So Tupac had his legal troubles and run-in with other rappers before he was signed to Suge. He jumped out of the car to help a black guy getting attacked without any thought for his safety or the fact that he was a star. This is similar to what he did in Vegas. He got into an altercation, allegedly in retaliation for one of his homeboys getting robbed. And then he ended up in a fight with Orlando Anderson, the person believed to be behind his death, depending on what theory you believe. Napoleon said Suge was wild, and Park was wild.
So what you don't understand, we done seen this spit in the face of a police officer, and nothing happened to him.
What, you saw?
Yes!
Signing to Suge helped his career with a #1 selling album and mainstream success. All Eyes on Me, Tupac's 1996 double album for Death Row Records, would be the biggest release of his career, selling over 10 million copies to date, and the last before his death. Although Tupac's career continued to thrive, it is believed the atmosphere at the label was not healthy. What was missing was a calming influence in his life, and that was never going to be Suge. According to Napoleon, he needed someone to remind him that he was the artist. He didn't have to get involved in certain beefs. Let's not forget, it was Suge who stood up on the stage and clowned Puffy. Many believe this started the whole East Coast West Coast beef.
And one other thing I like to say, any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row.
Although some believe it was simply a publicity stunt, others believe it led to the loss of two of the greatest rappers of all time. Suge wasn't connected to the Quad Studio incident though. This was really when Tupac turned on Biggie and accused him and Bad Boy Records of being responsible. According to Muta, Park needed someone to tell him to slow down, but at Death Row Records, everyone was wild. If Park said, "I'm about to go and knock someone out," Suge would be like, "Okay, I'm coming with you." But Park needed somebody to be like, "No, you're not gonna go and knock somebody out. You're the artist." That's what Park was missing, unfortunately, he said. This is likely what led to his demise. So Park was certainly no angel before meeting Suge. He was always wild to begin with, and hot-headed. He wouldn't hesitate to stand up for someone and get involved in situations to support another brother. Suge seemed to do the same for him at times. Both were grown and responsible for their own actions, but perhaps the two of them working together was a bad combination. Tupac was a high-caliber artist who would have benefited from avoiding trouble. Suge could have kept a more professional approach and protected his artists in the same way he protected his investments and business affairs. So do you think Suge is unfairly blamed for Tupac's death? And do you think Tupac really changed much after meeting him? Or was it just a bad combination of them fueling each other down the wrong path? Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts below, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to click the bell for more.